Welcome to Money Convos, where we discuss personal finance and investment tips. We're committed to helping people create wealth and achieve financial freedom. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. All right then, let's head into today's conversation.
Hi, Sarah. Welcome. And hi, Rosina. Always nice to see you. We'll be starting in a few moments. Today's conversation is going to be an interesting one. A somber one as such. In Akan, there's this saying, Eje has come. Daddy is coming, or daddy is coming. Daddy has come. So we are going to talk about daddy who has come. Sarah, am I there?
Hello, yes, Elikem, I'm here. Good evening.
Okay, great. Good evening.
Elikem, I'm depressed. I'm mourning.
Oh, no, please, no, don't do that. Don't do that. No, we need you in the best shape. So today, you are going to be a point person for today, so we need you to change up the energy. Because if our point person is down, then how about the rest of us? And as long as but don't worry, you carry the burden all on your own. We have Theophilus joining us. Theophilus has been with us on a previous Money Convos conversation when we were on Clubhouse. Theophilus, welcome. How are you doing? Okay. He requested. I accepted. Let me see. Okay, Theophilus, please request for the mic again or check your notifications. I've sent you a request to join. Thank you, everyone who has joined today. We are going to be talking about Ghana's debt restructuring and how it will affect you. We have here with us Sarah, who is a fund manager, among many other things that she does, and a full life of experiences, generally in the banking and finance sector. And we have Theophilus with us. Theophilus is a CFA charter holder. Theophilus, how are you doing?
Good evening. I'm doing very well here too.
I'm great, my brother. I'm great. Can you remind me the last time you were here with us on Money Convos? What was the topic?
We're talking about behavioral finance, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that was the Convo.
Yeah. And I'm glad to know, like, the apple you gave was not for. Since you used the apple, you got to go and write and pass the exam.
That conversation actually helped me keep a lot of the things, so it was a great one.
Oh, I'm glad. You see, when it comes, we're always trying to make impacts, even if it means helping people pass their exam. So I'm glad.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Theophilus, for making the time to join us. Sayram, please tell us what's going on.
What's going on? Where do we start from? As you rightly said, Ejabo. So let me backtrack a bit. We've all known, or for some time now, there has been the speculation that, government has been borrowing money. So just to make it very simplistic, you go and borrow money you go and borrow money, yet you are unable to generate enough money. So you go in this case, government came to all of us to borrow from us for long-term institutions, individuals, and with the promise that they are going to pay us on periodic basis. If it was bonds, if you're a bond holder, it means the government said that they were going to pay you every 6 months your interest, and then when they are due to pay you, that's if it's a bond, a 2-year bond, at the end of the 2 year they'll pay you back your principal. So we had that understanding with governments, but then how will government be able to repay us? Government will be able to repay us with monies that they have generated, so the taxes that they collect, and then other projects that they probably engage in, the returns from those things, they are supposed to use it to pay us. But now here's the case: government has been borrowing, we've been giving that money to, but government is unable to generate enough revenue to as well pay us. And even if when it generates revenue, realize that it is using more than 70, like a huge amount of its revenue to pay back debt holders. So it doesn't even have enough to be able to run its own affairs, right? So we decided so when we realized that, look, our debt is so much, it's no longer sustainable. You realize that the credit rating agencies, the people who how do I put it? They kind of, if you want to borrow, you have to kind of be in a good
the
standing. So we
examiners.
usually the examiners, exactly. The
They would call
examiners
you.
all downgraded us. All these examiners have downgraded us, because they said that at the rate we've been borrowing, it's going to be difficult for us to pay back. So because of that, if previously we could go to the foreign markets to foreign investors and borrow dollars and all those things, but they shut us out because we've been downgraded. We cannot pay. And so government, and now so that's why we've been trying to get onto an IMF program. But that also comes with some restrictions, and in a way to kind of get the IMF to sort us out or to bail us out, we have to show that we are willing to make certain sacrifices, right? So as a way to, so in this case, we are kind of putting our best foot forward for the IMF to be a bit more presentable to the IMF. We are saying that we are trying to restructure our debt. And the proposal that government is saying is that, look, all people who have lent given us money, right? Ideally, yes, we know that we are supposed to pay you, but at this point, we cannot pay you. That's the truth. We cannot pay you. So what we want to do is that we want to exchange all these existing securities out there, about almost 60 different bonds, right? We want to exchange it for, we want to take those ones back and then give you new investments, okay, new bonds, which will mature in 2027, some will mature in 2029, some will mature in 20, and some will mature in 2037, right? So government is saying that bring your existing bonds and then let me give you these new bonds, so that I kind of buy myself some time, so that hopefully by 2027, I free up some space so that I can start paying you interest. But the trick here too is, even government is saying that when you bring those bonds, as right now the situation is bad, I cannot afford to pay you interest. So irrespective of the interest that are current on the existing bonds, I would pay you 5%. I'll pay you 5% in on the 2024 bond. I'll pay you 5% from 2024. On the 2027 bond. Next year, 2023, I will not be able to pay you interest, right? But then I'll start paying you interest the next year, that is in 2024. Until 5%, and then 2025 10% until the bond matures. So it will be a similar structure for all these bonds. But one thing government was saying is that they are not going to...
Sarah,
Yes.
sorry, let me just check something on the rates and the dates you mentioned. I just want to confirm it's all the bonds, regardless of their maturity, the interest in 2023 is 0% interest.
0% interest, yeah.
Yes. Then 2024, 5% interest.
Yeah.
Then 2025, 10% interest.
Yes.
For the rest until they mature.
Until they mature, yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you. Please continue.
And the structure too is such that if you have a 2-year bond, right, and you take it, you agree to do the exchange. If you have a 2-year bond, government will split it. So 17% of that 2-year bond will be equivalent to the 2027 bond. Another 17% will be equivalent to 2029 bond. Then, sorry, my background, just a second.
Okay, so while we wait for Serum, the background choristers are going at it. Serum, I guess we'll give you a pause to attend to our nephew. Theophilus, would you like to pick it up from where Serum left? She had mentioned the implications on interest rates. I guess you can continue on, talk a bit more about the maturities and how it's being shared.
Okay. So, good evening to everyone again. So, what has happened is that, for example, if you had 1,000 cedis bond, but government of Ghana bond, regardless of when it is maturing, it has been divided into four separate bonds. So, 17 cedis of the first. So, in the four parts, we are doing it with a face value of say 1,000, right? So the first bond will have a face value of 170 cedis. The second one will have another 170 cedis. The third one will have face value of 250, and the last one will have a face value of 410. So it means your 1,000 cedis have been broken into four bonds, and the government aims to pay um, in 2027. That's the first 170 cedis. The second one will be paid 200 and will be paid in 2029. The third 2032, and the last 2037. So regardless of whatever bond you had previously, it has been broken down into these four. You have a short-term one, intermediate bond, medium-term bond, and long-term bond. So the long and short of the matter is that you're not getting the money at the initially agreed time. And then, as Sarah mentioned earlier on, there have been changes. Regardless of whatever coupon you bought the bond at, government is saying that from 2023, I can't pay you anything. 2024, I can pay you 5%. And thereafter, I can pay you 10%. So that's like a general overview of what is being proposed. At this stage, it's an invitation to participate. So I'm sure we'll get into that conversation. For an institution, you have the decision to make whether you take the exchange or you hold on to your old bond. What we don't know is what will happen if you hold on to the old bond and then you don't do the exchange. But if you are trying to do an educated guess, based on what Sarah has mentioned earlier on, the revenue lines of government and the level of debt, it might not be able to pay. So it's either you risk it and hold the bond to see if government will make the commitment, or taking the new one and accepting the new terms and conditions. I don't know how early can the conversation will go, but we can go into other matters if you like to take it, or we can continue.
Okay, so we'll be taking it step by step, but feel free to chip in any extra information. All right, but yeah, Sarah, please go ahead.
Yeah, Sarah, let's shoot here.
I wanted to add that there's also an information that was released that individuals, right? This structure is for now. It's not affecting Treasury bill. So if you had Treasury bills, 91 day, 3 months, 6 months, or even the 1 year bill, right? This is not affecting you. Government is saying that it's still committed to pay you. If you are an individual too, and then you have the bond directly, so meaning that you went to the bank yourself or the investment firm yourself to tell them that you wanted to buy a bond, and they opened an account for you, right, in your name. We know that if it's your cash is in your bank account. When it comes to things like bonds, we have what we call a CSD, Social Security Depository Account. It is an account that holds your investments for you, right? So once, just as cash is to bank accounts, your bonds and co will be to your CSD, right? So if the bond is in your sole CSD name, right, then you are also not going to be part of this exchange program. So that is where they say that individuals directly are exempted. But Elikem, I don't know if you want me to continue, because it becomes a bit tricky, because most individuals are invested in Treasury bills and bonds through collective investment schemes such as mutual funds.
So yeah, we will get to that. We'll get to that part in a few moments. But let's first focus on why the government is doing this. And Sarah, you gave a good explanation. In summary, they have not generated enough revenue to be able to pay back these loans, and people are not giving them extra money in loans, so they have to come and renegotiate. And it's like a situation where you've lent money to your friend or to somebody, and the person says, "See, I can't afford to pay. Let's discuss this and come to a mutually acceptable agreement, or I can't pay, and let's see what you can do." So that's the situation at hand. Sarah, you have a thought on that?
And this reminds me of one of the episodes we did. I've forgotten which episode though.
Richest Man in Babylon.
I don't think we thought Okafu and the fact that you remember those conversations?
Yes, I remember those about how our culture shapes our borrowing habits. I'm collecting versus I don't have. Who is more powerful? That's a good trip down memory lane, Sarah. But did you want to expand on that though?
Yeah. So I think that's about it. We government needs money. It needs room to be able to because there are certain things that government cannot stop doing. Government still has to build infrastructure. Government needs money to construct our roads infrastructure, as I mentioned. Government needs money to pay bills. We know that our wage bill is meaning that government is the largest employer, right? So it needs money to be paying people. And so this is just a way of them saying that, look, this is the situation. We don't have the money, but we need you to give us some room, give us some breathing space, because as it stands now, otherwise they would have to, just on interest payments, they have to pay about 30 billion. If I don't have my money, they have to pay a lot of money just on interest payments. So this structure is, as I said, is a way to get on the good books with the IMF, and then also a way to just tell us that we should give them some space, because over the next I think the next 10 years we should have enough room. We should be able to bring our debt down significantly according to the plan.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for that. To anyone who joined recently, we are discussing how Ghana's debt restructuring will affect us. A lot of people have investments in multiple places. In fact, even if it's a current account, savings account in a bank, even if it's not an investment account, chances are even some of the safest places, as long as they are official financial institutions, they invest a little in Government of Ghana treasury bills and bonds. So you would be affected indirectly, even if not directly. So it's good to understand what's going on and see how it's going to affect you, and see if there are any actions you can take. There are many angles to look at this. There are political ways you can look at it. There are social ways you can look at it. There are many angles, okay? But we like to restrict this conversation, the context of this conversation, to what's going to happen to people who have invested money. All right, that's what we are going to focus on. So bear with me if certain questions come in or certain comments come in, and I try to steer the conversation back into the context of the discussion. Okay, great. So
Elikem, before you go, just a quick one on Mejina Minibi. Sure. There's an interesting twist to the whole thing, right? The bonds that we bought had some agreements. We signed. The bond is basically government bonding itself that give me this money, and I'm bonded to be paying this amount of money in specific times, right? And then it's governed by the laws of Ghana. So the Attorney General issued his opinion on the issue, and it's interesting how it will pan out in the coming days. But it's basically saying that governments cannot simply say minibi, or because I don't have. So there has to be some legislation that should be passed before those things can happen, and then what the implications are. So the Attorney General is basically saying that these things can only happen under negotiation with the bondholders, and if they agree to do what government wants to do, then the conversation goes on. But as of now, it's just side information. We don't know how it's actually going to pan out, whether there will be any negotiations or it will be fall down our throat. But there are legalities to it too. basically.
Thank you very much for that, Theo. Thank you so much. It's foreshadowing a question I was going to ask earlier. So we'll circle back to this and the implications and how it will actually be executed. All right. So I'm curious, and Mimi, I'm inviting you up. So feel free to join us up here. And anyone who wants to ask a question, just note your question down, and we'll give you an opportunity to ask your question, or you can DM the Money Convos accounts right away with your questions, so that we can make sure to answer them. So to Saram, Edem, welcome. Yeah, to Saram, Edem, Theophilus, but Saram and Theophilus especially, because you have your fingers closer to the pulse right now. We understand why, or you've given us reasons why the government is taking this action. I get it. But I'm curious, this particular action that is being taken, could it have been better or could it have been worse? And let me give you a little more preamble, because I see that a lot of people are agitated, a lot of people are annoyed, a lot of people are really in a bad place because of these things that are going on. I'm just trying to reconcile it in my mind that, is there a better solution to our current problems than this? If there is, what is? What is that solution? If not, and this is the best that we can do, at least it will help us to understand better so that we can make some peace and know that, well, this is as good as it can get at this point. So which of you would like to take this first?
Okay. So I don't know if I can shoot.
Sure, go ahead.
So for me, it's like buying an insurance, right? You can choose to buy an insurance, say a car insurance, before any accident happens. Now, if you do that, then even if the accident happens, you get bent, but you get refunded with whatever losses you incurred. And then there is trying to buy an insurance when the accident has happened already. Every insurance company will be looking at you twice. I can't sell an insurance to you whilst you're in the middle of the accident. Now, as a nation, if we did our things better, the data and everything was clear as to the structure of our economy, and then as to what the implications of overborrowing or borrowing too much will do to our economy. We can't take away the external shocks that hit Ghana in terms of the COVID-19, in terms of the Russia and Ukraine war, and then general central bank policy in terms of interest rates around the world. However, these things only expose the true nature of our economy, just that we weren't prepared. Now, is there anything we can do? The truth of the matter is that in the middle of the fire, in which you are trying to buy the insurance, we don't have much option. We definitely must restructure our debt to make it feasible for government to pay, and then to basically support the macros of the economy. However, there are questions as to how it was done, and basically, I believe people have better solutions as to how we could go about it. In the current state at which we are doing it, the rippling effect, the cost that we incur will be almost equal to or more than every benefit we reap, because this thing, in the nature of the present program, will affect every phase of the financial sector. Our pensions can be basically gone, which will basically go if it happens. Our mutual funds are gone. It will affect insurance houses who try to purchase some of these securities for liquidity reasons and all that. So it was so avoidable. Everybody along the line contributed to where we are, and now we must do something about our debt to be sustainable. As to whether this particular program is the best, is up for debate. In my personal opinion, I think the consequences are dire, and then more consultation has to take place before we do anything. Because if you think about it, just on the surface of it, we are basically scrapping the Ghana fixed income market where we create security, because you are basically reducing every security there is to about 4 bonds, unless for individual holders. So something must be done. We must restructure, but there are questions as to what's the program that we have now. That's my take on this one.
Okay, great. So we've gotten ourselves in between a rock and a hard place, but you believe that it's debatable whether or not this is the best strategy. In summary, am I right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you for your take on this, Theo. Sarah, how about you? What do you think?
I'm aligned with him, and we are, as you said, between a rock and a hard place. So first of all, there weren't enough consultations done. Yes, we need a restructure because with the current state of affairs, it's just unsustainable. We may have gotten to a point where the government could just have easily said that they couldn't pay because it's unsustainable. So yes, there had to be some restructuring done, but as to whether this is the best, again, as Theophilus said, is up for debate because of the repercussions for how it is being done. So, and unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of consultations done. And in the midst, the timing too couldn't have just been worse because in the midst of people agitating on the mark-to-market value, seeing declines in their portfolios because they were being marked to market, and then this also comes in. It's just the timing is quite unfortunate. As to whether there should be better offers, because in the offer, the restructure in its current state it doesn't seem to be the most ideal.
Okay, great. So the offer on the table now doesn't seem to be the most ideal. Okay, thank you for sharing your take. You'll hear from Mimi, and then Adam, if you also have an opinion on this before, perhaps I'll also share mine, and then we move on with the implications. Mimi, especially how you see it from your end, sitting on the pension side.
It's been a tough time, and just as has been said, everything looks quite gloomy. I think that apart from everything that has said, what is making the situation a bit more painful and annoying is that, government expecting everyone to sacrifice, and then from their end, we aren't seeing very stringent things that they are doing to cut their own budget. We are seeing things that we would have thought that they let go given the difficult time, so that we all know that, this is what we are sacrificing. And so I think that apart from the mess up in the whole financial sector, which is a huge thing. In fact, yesterday I was reading about the whole Greece, debt distress, and it didn't look good. And I really hope we don't get there. It didn't look good at all. And so, these are very scary times. But I think what makes it worse and what makes people not even understand or want to hear any of this crap in quotes is that, in the mind of the average Ghanaian, we see these politicians, or we think these politicians are still living a lavish life, sacrificing nothing, and then expecting people who have saved maybe 100 cedis for 20 years or for 10 years, get into their retirement, hoping to finally have that comfortable retirement they dream of, just go down the line. And for me, the people that I feel for mostly are the retirees, because for those of us working, well, the main risk is, apart from us losing value on our pensions, that a lot of jobs may be lost through this, and we may lose time to contribute to some of these schemes. And as we have discussed in the past, time is of essence when it comes to some contributing to schemes like SNE. In fact, all the schemes, we lose some of these opportunities. And so I think and then even if we don't lose as many jobs, right, we are losing value on our money. It could have been better, but the situation is not looking good. But for the retiree, what options do they really have? Ghana doesn't have a job market for people who are a certain age, unless you have some specialized skill set. And let's look at business. How many businesses are thriving in these times? So it's like they've been put in a very tight space. And unless your pension benefits are, in fact, I was talking to a client today, she has millions. And to be honest, she diversified from the onset. So yes, some of her funds look some of her funds are under, these institutional investments. Others she invested directly. Others she invested outside the jurisdiction. So she's well diversified. I'm not really concerned for her. I think she'll be fine regardless. But there are those with the 50,000s and the 100,000s who may have not had enough to diversify and may have thought of institutional investments as a way of diversifying. And all these people are going to be punished, for making this decision. What is even more annoying is that
Mimi, can I ask you to summarize it just to bring it
this
towards
my
an end?
last statement.
Okay.
What is more annoying is that recently a lot of mutual funds had been people had been asked to invest through mutual funds if you have 50,000 or less. So I don't know, but anyway, let's leave it here. I'm talking too much.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So thank you for sharing your take, especially some implications for people in the pension space. For me, I'm thinking in terms of this debt restructure, I think that we have gotten into this space. A lot of actions, it's easy to point fingers at other people. And yes, the government should take full blame. But that's a different conversation. And I think we should keep the context of this conversation in mind. And that context is for individuals, for people who hold investments. I think that the debt restructuring was necessary because what is the alternative? I struggle to see what the next best alternative is. If the government doesn't have the money to pay, or they say they don't have the money to pay, what are you going to do? Are you going to go into a long, protracted legal battle with them? Or you would rather just hold on to the interest, take a smaller portion of interest and try to recoup? Perhaps sell what you can to somebody else who would have the patience to stick around. So I think this brings some level of certainty to the matter. It's certainty. It's not happiness, but it's certainty. When there's uncertainty, people go all over. People take bad actions, and so with some certainty, you know what the implications are for you, and you can take a good action. I just hope that we would learn some lessons out of this experience, and we will do better. As to what those lessons are, I think we'll leave it for another conversation, perhaps another platform or another conversation to get into how to avoid this situation. So now let's get into the implications. Sarah and Theophilus, I'm going to ask you about certain types of investments so that you clarify for me. You may have already answered it, but for people to hear specifically what's going to happen to their investment. So it's a roll call. Treasure bills, as some people like to call it, T-bills and T-bonds. Those who invested money directly with the government. These are individuals. What's the implication for them?
For individuals, as it stands now, they are not part. There's no implication. They're going to have their investments paid to them as and when they fall due. For both treasury bills. So if you invested in a 3-month paper, 6-month paper, or 1-year paper treasury bill, when your investment matures, government will pay your principal plus your interest as an individual. If you bought treasury bonds as an individual directly into your account, to this restructure does not affect you. So barring government default, you should be able to receive your coupons as the initial terms of the offer apply. So if you bought a bond, every 6 months you are paid part of your interest, right, until the bonds mature. So once it is in your name, every 6 months you should continually receive your interest payment, and then when it matures, you should get your maturity fee, your principal or your face value.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Next, but let's see a follow on from it. When they said they will get their full amount on maturity, and we know that on with treasury bills and treasury bonds, the full amount is your interest plus your principal. Are we saying that they are going to get their interest plus their principal on maturity?
Yes, as it stands now, the information we have, at maturity, you will get your full principal and your full interest at maturity on the treasury bills and then the treasury bonds held by individuals.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Theophilus, let me ask you this question then. How about ESLA, Dachi, and Cocoa bills? All right. And I ask this question because these investments were sold to people as Cocoa bills is it Cocoa Board or Cocoa Marketing Company? One of the Cocoa organizations. Yes, it's owned by the government. ESLA is also ESLA and Dachi are SPV, special purpose vehicles. They were clearly separated from Government of Ghana treasury bills. So are they also affected by this? Because we thought they were not Government of Ghana treasury bills. What's going on with that side, Theo?
So that's one of the scary parts of the whole situation, where agreements have been put in place purposely to mitigate some of these things, and then you find yourself being pushed into it. It's scary. Now, I'm looking at the documents the MOF shared, and then they stated clearly the kind of securities that will be affected by this program. They clearly mentioned the GOGs, the Government of Ghana bonds, ESLA, and Dachi. I don't see Cocoa bills here, but the tricky part is that the government has said so many things over the period, and then the opposites have transpired. So, as to whether Cocoa bill is part or not, now, even though it's not stated here, I can't say with certainty. But if you are going strictly by the document, it's only the GOGs, ESLA, and Dachi. And then as to it being a special purpose vehicle, and for that matter, should have had some protection away from all the GOGs. That was supposed to be the ideal situation. That's how it was designed. But the current program is basically ignoring all the arrangements that were made. But if I'm referring to what the Attorney General's opinion is, it's basically saying that you can't go all the way to unilaterally decide that all those things don't hold again unless both parties agree. So to summarize, SLS will be affected, Dachi bonds will be affected. We wait to see what will transpire, what the legalities will be, and then what will really happen.
Okay, great. Thank you. ESLA is affected by this, so the same conditions apply. If you are an individual and you bought into the ESLA bond, you are exempted. If you are a corporate, you'll be affected. Same goes for Dachi. But with Cocoa bills, we are yet to see. But what I would say about Cocoa bills, the Ministry of Finance also released frequently asked questions. And they said that they will engage on Cocoa bills in the soon. Or the word is not soon, but in the future. So it's more like watch out for this space. That one also has its terms and conditions coming up.
So for me, aside all these things that are going on, the scary part is quote unquote the credibility of the people handling this, because we've had different people in that authority or space saying different things, and then different things are happening. So really, investors are also asking themselves, are they going to do what they've even said? That's even another conversation we can have on another time, but the whole thing looks, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, I get what you are saying. It raises a lot of questions about credibility, and that would be something for the future, and it would definitely take some effort to mend it. However, at least we can work with the official documents that we have. We know that the memorandum has come into play, and these are the things that we can work with. Okay, great. Let's move on. Another one. I want to put all these together as one because they haven't directly been spoken of. We have mutual funds, that's collective investment schemes such as mutual funds, unit trust. Okay, we also have pension funds, we have insurance companies, and actually even our very own commercial banks. They also invest. When we give them money, they also go and buy treasury bills with some of the money. So they are not individuals, no, they are corporate entities, so they would be affected. And that makes me ask this question then: what's going to happen? I see that the document, the memorandum of understanding, the FAQs, and what the minister said, they say that they are going to create a liquidity fund or something for stabilization, all right, so that they can handle withdrawals. But do you know of any details about how that fund is going to be paid out, and what is the likely impact for people who have invested in those various institutions?
That's a tough one. Since Monday, because all these things came to the public domain Sunday, started coming in Sunday evening. And since Mondays, there have been consultative meetings. Our bosses, as in the fund managers and asset management firms, have been in meetings with the Ministry of Finance and reps from the Ministry of Finance. I know that the corporate trustees have issued statements. As it stands now, mutual funds, by the definition of their eligible investors, eligible investors, mutual funds, pension funds, mutual fund, pension funds. What's the other one you mentioned?
Insurance companies, commercial banks, and other financial institutions.
Individual. They are not per Sam Akes's definition. Even during the press, I said the individuals are you and I sitting there directly, right? They are not seen. They are a collective. They are not seen as individuals. They are seen as an institution. So they are institutional holders. So to that extent, this restructure affects this institutional holders. So if when you buy a mutual fund, so a mutual fund is basically you and I putting our monies together. Let's say all the people on this call, we all bring 50 cedis, 50 cedis, 50 cedis. We put it together because we are unable to directly go and buy a treasury bill with a 50 cedis or a bond with a 50 cedis. So we put it all together and then we give it to a fund manager, an institution, and says that this institution should manage it on our behalf. How do they manage it? They manage it depending on the dictates of the fund. They manage it by investing in other instruments. So in this case, they go and use our money together to go and buy treasury bonds, to go and buy fixed deposit, treasury bills, and then other securities. So in this case, the amount of money that they use to buy treasury bonds, right, government bonds, are being affected. On the treasury bill side, I think both institutional and non-institutional are not both individuals and institutions are not being affected on the treasury bill side. However, the bonds, which forms a significant chunk of our mutual funds, our pension funds, by law, pension funds are supposed to invest up to about 75% in both the government of Ghana and then like the SLS quasi-government bonds. So they are heavily exposed to government of Ghana bonds. Mutual funds, most mutual funds in Ghana here are fixed income mutual funds. And most of them, because of, again, how, quote unquote, we were using the term loosely, safe or risk-free government is, we have a lot of them exposed to government. So it's really a tricky one. It's just one thing I came to mind, that sovereign risk has been made very real to us.
Yep, sovereign risk has been made real. We can't assume that governments will always pay back when they borrow. Actually, when we think about alternatives, that when we talk about risk-free, I'm like, actually, an alternative is they can print the money and pay back. But then again, that's going to cause a great deal of inflation. So that's a bad idea. They can increase taxes. That may take time, and cause even more suffering. That's also another not so good idea, So yeah, there are other options, but as to how well they match up to this is a question. Okay, so let's lean further into these collective investment schemes, because I'm sure a lot of people who've tuned in today have these investments. And in fact, Money Convos has been advocating for people to invest indirectly to help diversify either the tenor or the issuer and all that through collective investment schemes. So people are curious. So far, we've heard about mark to market happen some time back. All right. And following the timeline, even before mark to market came, the president came to say in his Sikampe Dede speech that there will be no haircuts. A week later, mutual funds start affecting the mark to market, meaning that values that people hold have on their investments have dropped. So people are losing 15, 20, 30% of the value of their investments. That's fine. If you want to understand how that conversation went, you can just go back to the Money Convos profile or the Twitter page, and just scroll back to conversations that we've had in the past. Sometime in November, we had a discussion about mark to market and why it's happening and the implications. So that happened. And when we're having the discussion about mark to market, we said that mark to market is separate from the no haircuts thing that the president was talking about. All right. And at that time, the president was speaking, he hadn't made any decisions yet. And we foreshadowed that, yes, when there comes a time when that action on debt restructure comes up, we will then look at the implications on CISs. So, Sarah, you are closer to the matter. Right now, we've seen people lose some value to their collective investment schemes. Can people expect a further drop in the value of their investments due to this decision by the government?
Okay, so a few things. So first of all, I think we haven't mentioned that this decision by government, this debt exchange program, is said to be voluntary. So institutions can actually decide to tender in their bonds or not. It's a voluntary exchange program. They are not forcing us, right? These bonds are so if they decide to tender in and take part in the program, what we are unsure of is how the bonds will be traded, the price at which the bonds will be traded on the market. If the prices continue to fall, then of course we will continue to see declines in the values of the mutual fund. However, if we all understand that it's a temporary thing, we are in this together, and we still continue to invest, what would happen is that the new investments, because treasury bills in this case are not part of it, right? The new investments, new monies that will come, new contributions will be invested. I'm sure fund managers will seek to invest them in alternative investments that are equally high yielding. So if these alternative investments, which are equally high yielding, would help to, cushion or support the prices of the mutual funds to boost returns on the mutual fund. So it's not hope is not completely lost. It's true that yes, most of the mutual funds have a lot of exposure to the government of Ghana, but they are still in negotiations. And as new monies, especially with the pension funds, pension contribution is done on a monthly basis. As new monies come, the fund managers have the opportunity to re-strategize, right? So now, obviously, government, they are looking to leave government. So what do? They find alternatives that are equally high yielding to try and reduce the loss or the impact that this is going to have on their portfolio.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's a maybe, more or less. If I may just summarize what you said, it's a maybe, right?
Yes, Elijah.
Okay, all right. I'll add some more nuance in a moment. Theophilus, what are your thoughts? And as I'm asking you this question, as someone also on the CFA path, I'm just trying to do some calculations in my mind to see how the markets will adjust to these things. But what's your take on this? How is it going to affect the value of people's investments in mutual funds?
Okay, so Serum did justice to the pension side, but I think the mutual fund side, for some of the funds, because of how they are set up, they don't really have options. And then some would still have to stick to the government's securities or make amendments. Now, I did some small calculations to see what could be the fair value of government bonds after you've exchanged it based on the, what do you call it, the cash flow, the payments they've said they will do. And then roughly, I even used generous yield levels to the calculation. 1,000 CDs going through that program has a present value of around 330 CDs as of now. So I'm sure the market will price in even higher risk and other things that might even take it further. So on top of my head, I'm looking at all mutual funds that do not have options to diversify are taking some big hits just by doing the exchange of the bonds before market interactions. As to when it begins to trade, somebody is buying, somebody is selling. We get to see whether it will appreciate or it will depreciate. So it's bad news for mutual funds that are strictly government bonds or fixed income, or mutual funds that don't have alternatives. We are likely to see bigger losses if the fund managers decide to trade their existing government bonds for the new ones, unless they have alternatives that Sarah spoke about. But just by looking at the value of the exchange and then just discounting the cash flows that will be coming out of the bond, we are looking at losing somewhere around 60-70% of value just by the exchange. That's per my estimates. I could be wrong though, but I'm pretty confident about the calculation I did.
Okay, great, Theophilus. This is interesting because I actually disagree with your calculations, and it's
Okay.
good. It's good that we go back and forth, right? So let's just walk through it in a way that we don't confuse people. So currently, mutual fund values are going down to, if you had, let's say, 1,000 CDs, you've lost about 20-30% of the value because of mark to market. All right.
Yeah.
So that will bring you to 700 CDs. If you are able to tender in your bonds, the fund manager is able to tender in their bonds back to the government to get a new bond, they'll be doing so at face value. That means all the losses from mark to market will actually be recovered instantly. That's step one. Do you agree with me on that?
I want you to finish that. So the face values will be exchanged. That's established.
Yes.
That's fine.
So we'll go back to the values before mark to market. So there'll be some recovery. Now the next question then is, moving on, how much interest are we going to get? And that's where, if you get 0% interest in year one, yes, you don't gain much. In fact, you actually lose in real terms. So that's where we start seeing some value decline in 2023 in terms of real value. But the nominal amount in your investment account wouldn't go down. It's more about if you adjust it for inflation and the risk, that's when the value go down. But let's just look at the balance on people's account. It shouldn't go down. Then 2024, if they start earning 5% return at the end of 2024, that balance that you had as at 2023 would go up by roughly speaking, just 5%. So you are still growing in nominal terms. Okay, you see the value of your account growing. Then 2025, they start paying 10%. So when they pay that 10%, your value as at 2024 goes up again by another 10%, roughly speaking. All right. And it's from that point onward, your money keeps growing on at a rate of 10% per annum. That's for until the last bond matures. Is it 2039? 2039. Okay, good. So in nominal terms, in terms of the value of the money in your investment account, I see a recovery and I see very slow growth. But I would give you credit to what you were saying. If you are looking at it in terms of real, like what else could you have used the money for? Now, Please, if I lost you, this is why I bring you back. You are
Okay,
comparing
so
two scenarios. Sorry, just 1 second.
okay.
Two scenarios. Either you don't get any interest for the next couple of years, or get very low interest for the next couple of years, or you take your money, and then what's your next best alternative? Maybe you could have gone to invest in a different institution and earn 30% a year. So that's where an investor can weigh their options and say, okay, in this case, which one am I better off? And yes, going with the government is not good enough. It's not good, but I don't think the loss is that as steep as bringing your 1,000 cedis all the way down to 300 cedis.
Okay, so let me just take it. Like the points you made are valid in terms of exchanging face value. But mind you, once the exchange is done, we are expecting the portfolio managers to be marking to market, right? And then that's where I believe my calculation came in. And I didn't factor in the losses that have been incurred already. I'm just looking at 1,000 cedis going forward. Now, what you are saying holds if you are assuming the fund managers wouldn't trade the bonds, they'll just keep the value until it matures. That means all the cash flows are coming in and everything is perfect. But in the case where we'd have to go to the market to be selling some of these things and buying to meet liquidity needs and doing other things, even without selling it, if you're marking to market, the market will have to determine the real value of the bond against its face value based on prevailing yields, and then as simply as discounting the cash flow and seeing the value of the bond. So my calculation came from that angle, just by looking at what it might be trading at after the exchange has been made. Because if you are being realistic, if you're an investor and then you are buying that exchange bond, I'm not sure you're buying it at face value at that time, looking at where yields and other things are. So that's what my the arguments of the calculation that I did.
Okay. Thank you very much for that explanation. I actually understand what you've said, and it's very valid. It's very valid. So to any in our audience who lost us, who were lost by what we were saying, and Mimi, I see you looking at me sideways. Let me just summarize it. And I allowed us to have this banter back and forth so that we understand some of the things that will be going on in the back end. All right. So yes, you've lost some value in the mutual funds as they are now. The reality is that even with this recovery, with this debt restructure, you are not going to be made whole. That is fully agreed. If your 1,000 cedis that came down to 700 is not going back up to 1,000 cedis immediately. All right. In fact, chances are it's very unlikely that to go back to 1,000 cedis. Then, depending on what the mutual fund manager will do with the money, or how they can reinvest it, if they are able to reinvest, you may end up actually seeing further losses, maybe marginal losses, but it's because even though the government is saying 5% and 10%, on the real secondary markets, people will be expecting a higher return. I don't want to get too much deeper into the technicality of it without losing people. But in summary, what's the future? Is there a recovery? Not quite. Will you get your money back? I think this is where the liquidity support that the Bank of Ghana is going to be bringing will come in. And I think that liquidity support can make sure that at least if you are withdrawing, you get some of your money back. I'm curious. I have someone in the audience who mentioned, or two people in the audience who are in the banking sector, and I'll bring them up very soon. A key question for a lot of people is, okay, after all is said and done, even if I'm going to lose some of the value of my money, and I'm in a situation where I've put in a withdrawal with my investment house, and they've still not paid me over a couple of weeks. Does anyone have any idea how soon this liquidity support will be coming so that the investment houses can start paying investors' money back on time? Sayram, have you been contacted? Mimi, how about you, your institutions? Have you been contacted on how quickly these monies will come to support?
Not to the best of my knowledge. Well, then again, the exchange hasn't yet been agreed. They are still, as I said, are in consultations. The deadline for now is until exchange remains 19th December. So until then, we really do not have any firm information. Yeah.
Okay. So a little more patience is required to get full details. So, all right, Mimi, how about you? How about from your end?
From my end, we don't have liquidity issues. We are trying, pension funds are long term. So we are trying as much as possible to encourage, investors to stay calm. And for those that are due, let's say for the PF, those that have hit their 10 years, for those on retirement, for those that have hit, the time where they are due for withdrawals, we have liquidity available so that this is maintained. We are trying to encourage people to, as much as possible, think long term. Just like Sayram said, with pension funds, we'll be receiving inflows. So the hope is that we can invest these inflows well, and this will especially be dependent on the level of outflows. Once that is done, hopefully after some time we should hopefully bounce back. Of course, that's based on the performance of some of these things we invest in. But currently we don't have liquidity issues.
Wow, thank you very much. You've given me some hope, and I'll delve a little deeper into this. So I'm inviting up Dakwa George, and Eden, please remind me, what's the other name? I think he stepped out of the room, out of the space, but when he comes back, I'll bring him up. All right, and we will take George's take on or his opinion on the implications for investors in a couple of moments. But
Miriam is also in audio.
Yes, Miriam, please request for the mic so that I can bring you up. Let's hear your take, especially from your professional point of view, where you are seeing the market at. It's good that our audience will hear perspectives from different institutions. Yes, we usually don't sell who our employers are. We like to give share financial literacy tips with no strings attached. So we don't have sales targets, fortunately. So we try not to mention our institutions' names. But at this point, I need as many people who are on the ground as possible, actually working in these institutions without disclosing their institutions, to let us understand what's going on the ground. Okay. So let's just spend a few more moments on the pension side, because with the mutual fund side, yes, we've established, and Theophilus has helped us walk through that, how it's still going to be a rocky future ahead, and we need to brace ourselves. But at least from what Mimi has said on the pension side of things, this kind of gives me some hope, because pension funds can stick around for a while longer. They don't have as much withdrawal need as the normal mutual funds, where mutual funds can just get up and leave. My personal experience, I resigned from my previous employer somewhere in July, and I was trying to get my tier 3 and my tier 2. I even contacted Mimi. With tier 3, I can take it, but with tier 2, I can't take it. By law, it's locked till I'm 60. All right, so that gives some comforts in there that they can weather this storm. And they don't have liquidity needs apart from those people who are currently retiring, or the tier 3s where people are doing like liquidations. What do you, Theophilus and Sarah, what do you think about this? Is this a fair estimate to say that at least people can keep calm on their pension fund side of things and they will weather these storms? Sarah, would you like to go first?
Yeah. To some extent, yes. For those of us, especially we the young ones, who are still in active employment, we can weather the storm. However, yes, it's true. Maybe they don't have liquidity issues. However, if we are now marking to market, and the market prices,
Okay, we'll circle back to Sarah in a moment. Theophilus, how about you? What's your take?
Sorry, just before Theophilus comes in, Unlike the fund managers that have been asked to market, it's not the same with the pension space.
You don't say.
Yes. And so that is why I said that once we stay within, because we knew the 10-year, with the Pensions Act started a while back. So certain provident funds, a lot of provident funds will be maturing next year. So already before all this drama, that provision, at least for a pension fund that does its analysis, well, those provisions should have been made. You understand? And then also remember that even though a chunk of pension funds is invested in bonds, well, depending on the institute, some invest a lot in bonds. Others also look at the other asset classes. We had envisioned that there will be a lot of withdrawals in the coming year because of the 10-year anniversary, hence the provision for liquidity. If people stay calm, I don't think that we would have much of drama in that side. Even with retirees and the rest, we would be able to figure it out. But when people become crazy, that's when I think that maybe, I'm not speaking for anybody, maybe the industry may be pushed to market so that those who are left do not suffer. But for now, because of the 10th anniversary and with pension funds, when people will come for the money a sort of noon, especially with the tier 2, even with the tier 3, somehow, even though people come in as and when for all sorts of reasons, somehow you can sort of project a bit the kind of outflows that will be going out. So yeah, that's what I'll say. For now, the pension funds, there hasn't been a general like there has been with the fund managers that everyone should do market.
You know what, Mimi? God bless you. I think you have shone a light on this gloomy day because at least there's some respite, and we know how huge the pension fund is in our market. Billions of Ghana cedis in treasury bills. The pension funds alone, not having to deal with problems from the pension fund side, leaves us to have a lot more room to operate. So I'm glad this is the situation on the pension fund side, and there's some opportunity. Theophilus, you've also heard what Mimi has had to say. What do you think?
I feel it's a great relief because we're all projecting some gloomy stuff across the industry. So what she said, and then she is closer to the funds and the space than some of us. So it gives us some courage that at least a sector of the financial services industry can take some shocks for the time being and hopefully recover.
Yeah. They can take the shocks and recover. All right. Sarah, are you in a position to share your thoughts? Then we go to Dakwa George on his takes on implications for investors. Okay, we may have to circle back on to Sarah. So yeah, you've heard it. If you just joined the conversation, we are talking about Ghana's debt restructuring and how it's going to affect us as investors. So many areas are going to be affected, but in summary, if you are an individual who bought treasury bill for yourself directly from the government, you are fine. You are not going to be affected. All right. You get on maturity, you get your principal plus your interest. You are set. You are okay. Same with the bonds. You are okay. However, most of us have invested in collective investment schemes, mutual funds, unit trusts. So we will still be affected indirectly. And so if you missed that part of the conversation, when this session is over, you can just come back and replay it to hear what we had to say on it without getting too much into the details. And now we've just gotten some information that on the pension fund side, at least there's some respite. It's not all gloomy, but the pension funds were exempted from the mark to market and they have a longer term horizon, so they can weather these storms for a while. Okay, great. I've invited Dakwa George. Hi, Dakwa. Welcome upstage.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening. So tell me, from where you sit, how do you see the implications for investors being, and hopefully preferably an insight that none of us up here has already brought?
Okay. So thank you once again for the opportunity. Basically, from where I sit in the retail space in banking in Ghana, the past few months have not been easy, to be very frank. Clearly, what has happened right now has, in every market there are shocks. There are certain times that there are booms too. So you can admit that there's a shock. So eventually, in the last 3 months till now, there's been a lot of speculation. There's been a lot of uncertainty. Now we are hoping there will be clarity based on the debt exchange program that the government has announced. So clearly, from, like I'm saying, the retail space in banking, as financial providers using the financial intermediation mechanism to where people that have excess funds, okay, to give to institutions like us for us to invest, okay. Now all these people are asking questions. All these people want to see, hey, if I'm taking my money now, what does it mean? So for a bank, a typical bank in Ghana, what is going to happen is that once you have an investment in government securities, and let's say you want your money, what we do is that we are going to rediscount your money for you. So basically, there are others that are asking for these rediscount values to see what they are using it as sort of value of their money now. And clearly, the fact that the initial modalities have been spelled out by the government. And I wanted to add, I think there's this vulnerability bit of vulnerable group that the government announced, which, we are not, most of us, from where I sit, we are not even clear on what will happen. So maybe there might be some respite for certain institutions that I cannot speak to, but at least we know there's a vulnerable group that the government will be handling. So back to the rediscount option that I was talking about, most customers or most investors are using their rediscount values to make assumptions. And all what I wanted to say is that the rediscount value sort of gives you a fair indication of the value of your money today. So it doesn't necessarily mean the value will not change tomorrow. It is possible you might have gotten a rediscount quotation last month and was X amount. This month it will be Y amount. That should indicate that it will change once the market normalizes. So once progress is made on all these things, I feel as local investors, yes, there will be some stabilization in the market. But with everything that's happening in the market, I think this brings into the greater discussion the sort of questions we ask when we are investing. Because I've even had people sort of compare treasury bills to these unit trust holders. I've had people mix treasury bills and bonds. The right questions must be asked. I believe the right questions must be asked when we are entering investment options with any financial institution, so that we are clear. And I think as professionals too, maybe we've all gotten a good awakening, myself included, where government risk-free. I hope this will be a term of the past. Yes, there are shocks in every market, and this is a learning opportunity for all of us to see the shocks that have happened, how people have reacted to it, and position ourselves and come out better, if you ask me. So, that would be my initial submission before I get into the details on what it will mean to an investor. So, basically...
Sorry, George, I had to mute you. There was some feedback there, but we'll pick it up from when where you were about to talk about the implications, the next part of your submission on the implications for investors. You may want to check on your hardware for the feedback that was coming through. So yeah, that was a good submission. Two key things I picked out from that was how we understand the way markets move. Interest rates change almost every day. Even with treasury bills, when you want your money ahead of time, you would ask, what value will I get on this day? And they'll use a term, I'll discount it or rediscount. There are those terms that come into play, and you realize that the markets change every day. It's like you go to the market and you want to sell your used car. 1 month, they'll say they'll give you 50,000. Another month, they'll say they'll say they'll give you 90,000 for that same 20-year-old Corolla. So it changes. And another time, they may just give you just 20,000, So some of these things fluctuate. Hence, that brings the next part of what George was saying, that we need to question the people who sell investment products to us. Now, this thing I'm saying, I'm looking at Paulina in the audience. She's been pushing back hard on us on money convos, on the role investment houses have played in in all that's gone on, right? And so, yeah, investment houses have to give better information. And when they don't, we as individuals should also ask more detailed questions. Yeah, thank you so much, George, for your additions. Okay, so continuing on with the conversation, we've spoken about pension funds, and at this point, I guess we can start wrapping up and getting to the end of this conversation. In summary, I'll be asking this question, but you can start preparing for it. But in summary, what are we supposed to do? Should we keep calm, let things play out? Should we, I even shiver as I ask this question, should we go and take our money ahead of time? Or what should we do? We'll go around the table to ask this question. But I'll just let George finish the final part of his submission. So George, back to you. You can unmute it.
Yeah, thank you very much once again. I want to answer your question, the question you just asked. I mean, as investors, right now, I know...
Sorry, you can answer that in a bit, but just if you can finish...
Okay. So what I wanted to conclude on is basically the right questions, like I said, education and investment. I hear a lot of people passing this time around where financial literacy, I want to really understand what the scope is, but I want to just zone in on investment. I mean, I don't think entering the banking or a financial institution that you want to invest in must necessarily have to know all the financial literate terms or conditions. But it's very clear that once you are parting with X amount into a certain venture, you understand the modalities, the terms and conditions of the venture that you are moving your money into. So that is one thing I feel as investors going forward from this day till, it is clear that we have to be very informed and ask the right questions. And also the initial chaos, like I said, in the last 3 months, yes, it's understandable. It's a market and there's a shock. And I feel all these things is good. We are having these sorts of discussions. So we provide insights onto what this means, what that might not mean, what is really involved. But so far, I think what the government has announced as an individual investor, I feel, yes, there should be some sort of calm. There should be some sort of progress being made because, yes, it is clear that individual investors, be it in T-bills, be it in bonds, you are okay. And the bit with, but I am still affected because my pension house is going to be, my pension trust is going to be affected. Yes, basically, if you are not close to 60, don't worry, the market will normalize. There will definitely be some sort of gain on your side once the market normalizes. So that's bit where, let's say, what about my pension? It's not like I'm going to take a pension today or tomorrow, so that should be a problem. The unit trust holders are in a different category, and maybe they might feel the pinch because of how that sort of investment is. And that is basically what I want to end my submission on.
Thank you, George, for that. So, calling for some calm. If you're an individual, you may calm down. And if you are thinking about your pension funds, even more so, more reason for you to calm down. We'll open it up for questions before we answer that final question that I asked. So if you want to ask a question, I strongly encourage you to send a message either in the DM or to reply to the tweet announcing this space so that we can put the questions together. For the sake of time, I would want to avoid having to bring people up and then we have lengthy questions or questions that will deviate from the context. Remember, the context here is not to complain about the government. Yes, we all know they messed up. We all know. This government and previous governments, so many players have messed up. But the question for us now is, we have monies invested in various places. How is this going to affect us? Let's keep our questions to this. And yes, we promise we'll have another space to have a discussion on the larger issues and how we got here, how we can avoid that, getting back into such a situation. That will come later. So if you do have any questions, please, I'll be waiting for them so that I can ask on your behalf. Or if you are truly inclined, you can request the mic and I'll allow you to speak briefly. And don't mind if I cut you short if it's going too long. Okay. How about our speakers? Do you have any follow-up things that you want to mention? I know, Theophilus, there were some points that you wanted to make at the beginning. in case we didn't get there. Have we covered every point you wanted to discuss with us?
I want to clarify something.
Sure, go ahead, Mimi.
Yes. So as I said, unlike SEC that has instructed all fund managers to use a mark-to-market valuation, with the pension industry, it's not so. But I want to ask to err with caution, because if withdrawals, as I said, become rampant, it pushes us to look at the mark-to-market so that those who are remaining on the fund don't lose out. So I'm saying this so that people don't just try and exploit this system, because it will come to bite them in the long run. So it's pension, it's long-term investments. Calm down, leave your money in. So just to correct, I'm not saying that mark-to-market can happen eventually. It will all happen if we calm down. Then and we withdraw at the right time, either when we are 10 years for personal pension, when we are 5 years for tier 2, when we are retiring.
Okay, thank you, Mimi, for that clarification. As you are asking this question, why did someone from SEC call you holding a copy of your license in hand? That's in the investment space. Our rules are never say never, no. So issuing the disclaimers, but totally appreciated. Mark to market is not entirely out of the picture, but in the current conditions that we are, if things keep going the way they are in the pension space, we would be fine. But if things go south, okay, we may have to draw on that measure. Mimi, have I represented what you said in the same light?
Exactly, so that we safeguard those who have decided to save for their retirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. So we have a question from Mr. Nickel. Mr. Nickel, I welcome upstage, and I plead with you, keep it brief and also stick with the context. The context is what's going to happen. How are we as investors affected by the debt restructuring? Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just have a quick question on the proposed exchange. And my question would be that if I had exposure today, they are saying they are not paying any interest in 2023. Does that mean the money I have does not accrue any interest in 2023, or it accrues interest, but they are just unable to pay any interest in 2023? That's just my question.
Thank you, Mr. Nickel. Very appropriate question. And in fact, I had not seen it that way. Those are we professionals would understand it, but it's very good you've asked this question. Sarah, you want to take this?
Okay, sure. First of all, thank you for the question. First of all, let me start off by saying that you as an individual, again, this will not affect you. So if you, Mr. Nickel, had the investment, you will still be enjoying your current term, so it will not affect you. However, per the exchange program, per the exchange program, the interest is 0%. So it's not, you are not accruing. There's no interest. When we say there's no interest being paid in 2023, the interest rate that is applied in 2023 is 0%. So it's not going to be accrued.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Okay, yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nickel. Yes, so for those who will be affected, who I doubt any of us here directly, if you bought a bond, this wouldn't affect you, but for the institutions, yes, 2023, if they put in 1 million, all they get is their 1 million kept at the same level. Nothing comes to add on it. Great. I have a question in my chats, and it asks, for individual investors, if you purchase a bond through a bank, does that make you an individual investor? So who qualifies to be an individual investor? Sarah, do you want to take this one also?
Okay.
Wait, actually, Sarah, if you don't mind, please let me allow George to take this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. Once again, how we operate is basically before you purchase hello.
Okay, George, we got some feedback, so I muted. You can unmute if it's fine now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So like I said, what I was saying is we definitely, whatever we do, we apply to regulatory requirements and per law. Once we are purchasing it, we have to register.
Yeah. Sorry, it's coming up again. Maybe you want to put your phone on Do Not Disturb. That would help us.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes. Okay.
Give it one more. So like I was saying, we operate under very strict regulatory requirements. And we'll first have to, if you are purchasing, be it a T-bill or a bond, we first register with CSD, be it the Central Securities Depository of SEC. Then once we register you with CSD, there are certain categorizations or segmentations in the CSD registration for each client. So there's the local investor, there's the foreign individual, there's a local company. So if you're an individual, once your CSD profile is local individual, which is the LI bit of the CSD registration, what we have been told, or the information in the debt service exchange program, is that you are not going to be affected by this. So how they are going to see that this is an individual is basically using, from where I sit, I think is going to use, they are going to use the CSD profiles of these customers to ascertain this is an individual, this is a local company, this is a foreign individual. All those things are mapped on the CSD bit of the registration. So that is how that will be tackled, please.
Great. And also let me just add a little color to this. How do you know that you have you've been given the classifications that George just mentioned? When you buy the treasury, when you are registering your account for the treasury bill, they'll talk about something like CSD. So if you've bought treasury bill anywhere, go back to that place that you bought the treasury bill and ask them if they created a separate CSD account for you. That should be the norm, especially with all the brokerage houses. That's what they do. All right. And so you have an account with them and you have a second account with the CSD, the Central Securities Depository. So go ask those questions. Please, what is my CSD account number? Get that CSD account number. Ask for the statement if possible. Put it on file somewhere so that if somebody comes to do any kind of funny business with you later, you have this as your proof of record. All right. So now we've learned about this. Please add it to your to-do lists. Go get your CSD number. Go get your CSD statements. Thank you for that question.
That is
okay. Let's take Seram and then Theophilus. Seram.
Okay. I just wanted to add that what you have asked to put on the to-do list very critical, because you find that there are a few institutions that end up may not necessarily create CSD accounts for individuals. They buy it under the company CSD, and then when your bill matures or whatever, they pay you, right? So go and make sure that wherever you did the investment from, you are able to access your CSD statement, request for your statement, and as Eddie Kem said, have it on file. If they don't have a CSD account for you, insist they open a CSD account and credit your securities into your CSD account. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Insist. Theo, how about you? You've been I remember when you were in the front there and people were telling you you're giving them too many forms to fill. Why don't you already have my details?
So I was just basically come to see what Sarah said. Because of the number of forms you have to fill and all that, people at times forget or ignore. And then some institutions have a funny way of doing it without actually getting the CSD. So if you bought a bond directly, as has been said already, or a treasury bill, you have to insist that you get the CSD, the number and the statement. It has to be created. If not, then you find yourself wanting. So basically, to reiterate what they said.
Great. Please, we can't insist on this anymore. If you don't want to be affected by the debt restructuring and you have bought T-bill before, call your bank. I would encourage you not to go there. They are overwhelmed. Fuel prices are high. You call them, send emails for starters. If they are delaying, then you make the move there. Okay, let's decongest the banking halls. Okay, but follow up, get that information. It is critical. In fact, I think if you've not heard anything at all today, this you must go home with. All right. Okay, thank you.
Mutual fund or parcel.
Yes. Yes, we are not talking about mutual funds, please. We are talking about treasury bills. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Yeah. Are there any more questions that anyone would like to ask? Or while we Adam, great. Adam, please go ahead.
Yeah, just flowing from what has just been said, I was just wondering, there was a time I saw a couple of statements from the CSD directly to my email. I'm wondering if we could also request for statements directly from the CSD in case probably your institution is giving you some challenges or something. I just wanted to find out if it is something that can be done, that people can, I think, whether people can request for their statements directly from the CSD. Just a question.
Just to clarify something, Adam, do you have treasury bills or bonds?
Yes.
Okay. Do you also have shares?
Yes.
Okay. I think those statements sometimes they come from the share side, but let me ask, Theo, Seram, do you have any experiences of people receiving CSD notifications? Okay, George can give us further details. George, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so you can request for your statement from CSD, but definitely you have to do it through your institution. But yes, there have been instances where personally I have seen individuals get their CSD statement from CSD directly. But the thing with the CSD statement is that it might not necessarily be tied to your current financial institution or the financial institution you're speaking about. CSD is looking at your CSD ID in a more macro view, in the sense that they are looking at CSD. Let's say if your CSD number is 1 and you're a local individual, so let's say individual LI1. So they are looking at how that CSD ID is registered to Bank A, how it is registered to Bank B, what securities are listed with Bank B with your CSD ID, what securities have been listed in Bank B with your same CSD ID, what has been the buy and sell. When we say buy and sell, in the sense that what allocations or securities have been allocated to you by virtue of you buying them or by virtue of you selling them. These are things that you see in your CSD statement once you get a hold of. So it's not going to be like the typical account where you're going to see debit, credit. You are just going to see a more macro view of what is happening to your CSD profile. That is once you have a CSD profile.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that. It's that statement comes and it's a bit different. And sometimes it may take you a while to understand it. But if you can get it, you hold on to it and get someone to explain it to you. It just gives you the total of everything you currently hold, as George has said. Okay, great. Let me see. Okay, so I have another question in the chats and or in my messages, and it's asking, how does one check his or her account with his or her CSD number? And again, we just say a good starting point is with whoever you bought a treasury bill with. Same goes for if you have shares. Yes, we are not talking about shares today, but if you own shares directly, it's also related to the CSD. Get those accounts. First, talk to whichever institution you bought those investments with, and they would give you those details. And you can request for those statements. No institution can deny you those statements. Someone may grumble because it may just take them a few more minutes of effort and they want to sell more to other people. But it's your right and you are entitled to it. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, are there any more questions? While we wait for any more questions, we can just start going around and asking our speakers. So in summary, what do you think investors should be doing? Of course, disclaimer, this is not investment advice. To get good investment advice, you need to sit down one-on-one with an investment advisor, someone who is properly licensed or someone you trust, not someone who's trying to sell something to you, right? And let them explain your personal circumstances to the person, and that way the person can give a tailored answer to you. You know, two people may go to a hospital with headache, but the doctor will ask them certain questions to figure out that one's headache is from malaria, the other person's headache is from COVID. You understand? So you need that tailored discussion to get a right answer. So just use these discussions that we've had as a guide but definitely go talk to someone to understand your personal situation. All right, George, let's hear from you and your summary point for us.
Okay, thank you once again. So I just want to clarify with the CSD number. With the CSD number, it is possible one investor or one individual can have two CSD numbers. It is possible. There have been instances where, because of certain migrations and certain updates that have happened, there are certain people that purchase investment with Bank A, purchasing another investment with Bank B, and all these banks registered the individual independently. So in that case, you might have two CSD IDs. It is normal. It is fine. Once it is your account and it is linked to your profile, you can see the KYC details and it is well and good. It can be merged later. And also to see that your CSD ID is for an individual, you will see that it's either at the suffix or the prefix bit of the CSD number that will be quoted on your statement. There will be these two LI. They'll write LI. So once they've written LI, then it means it's a CSD ID that is registered as a local individual. So once you see something like that on your investment statement, you are okay. And to wrap it up, basically what investors should be doing now, I want to say two things. First thing is for all of us to have a renewed mind when we enter financial institutions and we are given forms to complete. Excuse my language, form where they are doing. I now will be some form, one form, baby, now is the time to pay attention to the forms we are giving. Read them carefully, ask why this, why that, then we complete them as we do. And secondly, let us stick to our investment objectives. If your objective of investing was for X reason, don't let these market shocks, and that is what it is, don't let these market shocks necessarily derail you into a decision that you might regret. That is what I want to say for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Two key takeaways that you've given us. Thank you so much for that. Okay, who would like to go up next? Adam, how about you? You've been on the listening side of things today. What have you gathered so far?
Okay, so I intentionally listened a lot today because I also needed to learn. So basically, I think that just like George said, well, if you have a long-term view in investment, we know that these shocks are quite huge. But under the circumstances, what are our options? Our options are quite limited. So probably this is a time where it's very, very important that if you are trying to look for an alternative or try to do something else, these are the times that I think that you should really ask questions and really understand what exactly you're putting your money into, so that we are not confused when certain outcomes are coming up. So I will also side with him that we should kind of keep calm, because the option for all of us to rush to our various places, it will not even help all of us in the long run. So yes, there are people who genuinely need their funds to do whatever they have to do, and that's one. There's not too much we can do about it. But given the circumstances, if it's possible, let's think about the long term and see how we can find other alternatives to bounce back when things normalize, and hopefully they do within the time horizon that the government is trying to look at. Yeah, so that's what I can say.
Okay, great. So if you are here for the long term, hang in there. All right, thank you, Adam, for your thoughts. I know Mimi and Sarah want to go. Let me flip a coin. Imaginary coin flipped. Mimi first.
Thank you. Anyway, yes, what this has brought to light for me is honestly the need to have a financial plan. And for many of us, we just, invest. And I've realized that the reason why a lot of us are even agitating more is we don't have any funds for emergency. And one thing that hits me now is, okay, what if you get called that, okay, don't come tomorrow, or with all this drama, you lose your job? Do you even have enough to sustain yourself? And honestly, I had squandered my emergency funds. So this just got me. I was now looking at rebuilding it. So this just got me a bit agitated. So I feel like let's really look at financial planning. If we do it and we do it right, we have our emergency fund, we set our goals, and we use that as a guide to work towards whatever it is that we want. I think that we'll be less agitated. And I spoke to a friend today and she was telling me that, she's not concerned after all. I mean, it's her pension funds. And I know she doesn't have it just with my institution. She has with others. And it's also personal pension, but she seems to be relaxed. And I know it's because she's put her finances in order. So really, those funds are really long term. She has other funds for other purposes, and she's also well diversified. So from now on, let's try as much as possible to have a financial plan and be diversified. Don't just go and say I want to invest. That statement, repent from it. From now on, let's be more deliberate about our finances. That's what I have to say.
Great. Let's be more deliberate about our finances. Thank you, Mimi, for sharing that. We'll hear from Seram, and then I have someone in the audience, my good friend Prince, who will hear his take on this, or if he has a question for us. So Seram, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Elikem. I think it was good you flipped toss the coin, because Mimi has just shared exactly what I wanted to talk about. I always say this thing: don't invest. Do not invest without building a basic emergency fund. Like, don't invest if you don't have an emergency fund. When we're talking about emergency fund, we are basically saying that money that if you lost your current source of income or you have an emergency, you can tap into to sort yourself out. And this should be a minimum it should be equivalent to your 3-month expenses. So if you spend 2,000 cedis every month, then it means that you should have minimum 6,000 always in your bank account or somewhere you can readily have access to. So that is very key. And again, there's so much speculation in the system. Let's not act on emotions. Let's not panic, because it is the panic that is worsening the situation for the lot of us. And again, yes, the losses are there, but they are paper losses. So let's not necessarily panic. Once we are panicking, we are forcing the fund managers to actually sell the bonds at bad prices. In addition to that, let me just end by saying that yes, government is still in negotiation. I know that from experience, I know that the fund managers are still in negotiation with government on this deal, and we are hoping that something better. The deal is not just as it is, but we are all praying and hoping that they act in our interest, and then we get a more favorable deal. So, but let's not panic. Let's stick to our investment objective. If you are investing for the long term, please do not go and take the money, because the risk of you even keeping it on yourself is another thing altogether. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Do not panic. Keep calm. Things are still being negotiated, so we are hoping for better. But the panic causes things to be even worse. All right, so let's see. We've gone around the table. We are yet to hear from Theophilus. Good. So Theophilus will give us the last word. But before that, my very good friend, who recently joined the Ghana Bar Association, and it's not Ghana Bar Association. He recently became a lawyer, so I also had someone I could post. I wasn't left out. You understand? Prince, please go ahead and on the context of the implications of the debt restructuring to investors in Ghana. Prince, you can unmute and speak. Okay, I think we may have to circle back to Prince. All right, Theo, let's hear from you then.
So for me, I think it has become clear to all of us that to every investment, regardless of whatever it is, there is volatility. It can go up or it can come down. Nobody should tell you otherwise. Even in treasuries all over the world, value can go up or can come down. So if you are investing, you have to have that mindset. And the second question becomes your risk tolerance. So based on the level of volatility you can take, then you get advice as to which kind of investment you should put your money in. But there is no investment that only goes up. when the times are good, they'll go up, but there can be bad times where they can come down. And just to wrap up, cash has also become a new asset class. So usually there were theories and discussions around you not keeping cash and all that, but in periods of high volatility and economic uncertainties, cash is also an asset class. So if you don't have any proper advice or your risk tolerance doesn't fit the market, you might as well keep your cash than to get DP by looking at your balances every now and then. That's my final submission. Thank you.
Thank you. So Theophilus is advocating for your health. If you can't handle the risk of investments, please keep it in cash or in let me add on somewhere safe. That Roberts won't come and get it. You understand? So that your blood pressure won't worry you too much, because nothing is guaranteed in this life. Okay, great. Still trying to bring Prince back up. Prince, you can go ahead. Okay, don't worry. I'll just ask his question, and it's an interesting question he asked.
Charlie, the mic did glitch. Sorry.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Charlie, so I say, like, these are really, really tough times to plan in financially. So my question is, you guys have like some templates for there we want to share, or if we DM you go feel hold read down plus strategies and things for this time, because some of we just want to invest for long term. We know say we want to invest for long term because it's the wise thing to do. Not really know the encomiums. But right now things happen with it here terms and things, mark to market and things, bro. It's a lot. So if you say you have some templates for there, or make we DM you and thing, and you hold it down.
Thank you for that. I can give a plug without calling it a shameless plug. So yes, you can reach out to us, DM us. Or the account here is Money Convos, or anyone up here on stage. And we would help you out if you want a fast enough response. We have in the past put some materials together, but I think we'll just go through the archives and put a simple plan together, like what Mimi and Seram were saying, starting off with an emergency fund, those steps, checking your retirement accounts, all those checklists that you have to do. So we can circle back and then share on social media. So if you are not following us already, just go ahead and hit the follow button and for Money Convos and all of us up here on stage, so that when we do share it, you will receive that information. Or if you want to reach out via email, it is moneyconvosgh@gmail.com. And especially for the ladies, we have Seram and Mimi running Investment Friend. Investment Friend is on Instagram. So they offer personal finance coaching for women. All right. And even for the ladies and for the gentlemen, you also want to help your sisters, your girlfriends, your colleagues, and everyone to also get on this path so that they will also be financially sound. Otherwise, people will come and depend on you a little, even your male friends, your female friends. So share the word about Money Convos and Investment Friends so that people would give you the steps that you can start with. All right. Thank you for that question. All right. So, without much ado, we can start bringing this to an end. We've heard everyone's closing comments. I'll just say that thank you for making the time to listen to this. I know it's something important, but I just want to call for calm. Keep calm, make level-headed decisions. And I'll give you an example behind keep calm. A couple of weeks ago, a former client of mine called me. We were on the phone for about 2 hours. And she was just panicking. What's going to happen to Treasury bills? She's had there's haircuts and all that. Yes, hindsight is 2020. Now we've seen that individuals are not going to be affected. All right. But back then, this is the piece of advice I gave her. Make a decision that regardless, however it goes, whether you get all your money with your principal and interest, whether you get a haircut, whatever be the case, make a decision that you can live with. Because you can't make two decisions at the same time. Either you withdraw or you stay in. Either you invest or you don't invest. Even your inaction is a decision. So just make sure that you are making a decision that you can live with. And how do you know you can live with this decision? Don't be emotional. When you hear the news, people are gingering you, things are going off. Calm down. Don't call your bank immediately that day to put in a withdrawal. Don't take an action immediately that day. Give it a day, give it 2 days. Think about it. You calm down, you drink some cold water. If your decision is still the same, take that decision. But know that the greatest financial experts have always said that when people are selling, you buy. When people are buying, you sell. When people are panicking, if you calm down, you can make a better decision and you would be better off for it. So I do hope you enjoy the rest of this week. And I hope to catch you here next week. Next week, we'll be talking about resilience. Unless there's any more breaking news from the government side, we were going to talk about resilience today. But in these tough times, we are looking at resilience. People are going to be sharing times when they had tough challenges and how they were able to turn it around. Not just on the topic of money, but in life in general. In these times, we all need to keep each other together and strong. So I hope to catch you here next week, Wednesday at 6 p.m. GMT. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your day or your week. Goodbye.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our thoughts. I hope you learned a thing or two and start practicing. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook. And subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. Do tell a friend about Money Convos so we all become wealthy together. Talk to you soon. Bye.